He recalls some things and forgets others. Thus, his upside-downness goes through production, dwelling, change, and extinction, which are taken in and returned to a center habitually, each following the next without ever being overtaken. This is known as the mind organ or intellect. The mind and the fatigue are both body. Persistence produces the characteristic of fatigue. The two defining objects of production and extinction stimulate a sense of knowing, which in turn grasps these inner sense data, reversing the flow of seeing and hearing. Before the flow reaches the ground, it is known as the faculty of the intellect. Apart from the two sets of defining objects of waking and sleeping, and of production and extinction, the faculty of intellect is originally without substance. Thus, Ananda, you should know that the faculty of intellect does not come from waking, sleeping, production, or extinction, nor does it arise from the sense organ, nor is it produced from emptiness. For what reason? If it came from waking, it would disappear at the time of sleeping. So how could it experience sleep? If it came from production, it would cease to exist at the time of existence. So how could it undergo extinction? If it came from extinction, it would disappear at the time of production. So how could it know about production? Suppose it came from the sense organ. Waking and sleeping cause only a physical opening and closing, respectively. Apart from these two movements, the faculty of intellect is as unsubstantial as flowers in space because it is fundamentally without a self-nature. Suppose it came from emptiness. The sense of intellect would be experienced by emptiness instead of by the mind. Then what connection would that have with your entrance? Therefore, you should know that the mind entrance is empty and false, since it neither depends upon causes and conditions for existence nor is spontaneous in nature. Moreover, Ananda, why do I say that the 12 places are basically the wonderful nature of true suchness, the treasury of the thirst come one? Ananda, look again at the trees in the Jeta Grove and the fountains and pools. What do you think? Do these things come into being because the forms are produced and thus the eyes see, or because the eyes produce the characteristics of form? Ananda, if the organ of sight were to produce the characteristics of form, then the nature of form would be obliterated when you see emptiness, which is not form. Once it was obliterated, everything that is manifest would disappear, since the characteristics of form would then be absent. So, who would be able to understand the nature of emptiness? The same is true of emptiness. If, moreover, the defining objects of form were to produce the eyes seeing, then seeing would perish upon looking at emptiness, which is not form, and once it perished, everything would disappear. Then who would be able to understand emptiness and form? Therefore, you should know that neither seeing nor form nor emptiness has a location, and thus the two places of form and seeing are empty and false. Their origin is not in causes and conditions, nor do their natures arise spontaneously. Ananda, listen again to the drum being beaten in the Jeta garden when the food is ready. The assembly gathers as the bell is struck. The sounds of the bell and the drum follow one another in succession. What do you think? Do these things come into existence because the sound comes to the region of the ear, or because the ear goes to the place of the sound? Again, Ananda, suppose that the sound comes to the region of the ear. Similarly, when I go to beg for food in the city of Shravasti, I am no longer in the Jeta Grove. If the sound definitely goes to the region of Ananda's ear, then neither Uddiyana nor Kashyapa would hear it, and even less the 1250 Shramanas who, upon hearing the sound of the bell, come to the dining hall at the same time. Again, suppose that the ear goes to the region of the sound. Similarly, when I return to the Jeta Grove, I am no longer in the city of Shravasti. When you hear the sound of the drum, your ear will already have gone to the place where the drum is being beaten. Thus, when the bell peals, you will not hear the sound, even the less that of the elephants, horses, cows, sheep, and all the other various sounds around you. If there is no coming or going, there will be no hearing either. Therefore, you should know that neither hearing nor sound has a location, and thus the two places of hearing and sound are empty and false. Their origin is not in causes and conditions, nor do their natures arise spontaneously. Moreover, Ananda, you smell the Chananda in this censer. When one particle of this incense is lit, it can be smelled simultaneously through forcibly around the city of Shravasti. What do you think? Is this fragrance produced from the Chandana wood? Is it produced in your nose, or does it arise within emptiness? Ananda, again, suppose this fragrance is produced from your nose. What is said to be produced from the nose should come forth from the nose. Your nose is not Chananda, so how can the nose have the fragrance of Chandana? When you say you smell fragrance, it should answer your nose, for the nose to emit fragrance is not the meaning of smelling. Suppose it is produced from within emptiness. The nature of emptiness is everlasting and unchanging, and so the fragrance should be eternally present. What need should there be to rely on burning to dry wood in the censer? Suppose it is produced from the wood. Now the nature of this incense is such that it gives off smoke when it is burned. If the nose smells it, it should be filled with smoke. The smoke rises into the air, and before it has reached the distance, how is it that the fragrance is already being smelled at a distance of 40 li? Therefore, you should know that neither the fragrance nor the nose smelling has a location, and so the two places of smelling and fragrance are empty and false. Their origin is not in causes and conditions, nor do their natures arise spontaneously. Ananda, twice every day you take up your bowl along with the rest of the assembly, and among what you receive may be things of sublime flavor, such as curds, buttermilk, and clarified butter. What do you think? Are these flavors produced from emptiness? Do they come forth from the tongue, or are they produced from the food? Again, Ananda, suppose that the flavors came from your tongue. Now there is only one tongue in your mouth. When that tongue had already become the flavor of curds, then it would not change if it encountered some dark brown candy. Suppose it did not change, that would not be what is called knowing taste. Suppose it did change, the tongue is not many substances, and how could one tongue know so many tastes? Suppose it were produced from the food does not have consciousness, how could it know taste? Moreover, if the food itself were to recognize them, that would be the same as someone else eating. Then what connection would that have with what is called your recognition of taste? Suppose it were produced in emptiness. When you eat emptiness, what flavor does it have? Suppose that emptiness had the flavor of salt. Then, since your tongue was salty, your face would also be salty, and likewise, everyone in the world would be like fish in the sea. Since you would be constantly influenced by salt, you would never know tastelessness. If you did not recognize tastelessness, you would not be aware of the saltiness either. You would not know anything at all. How could that be what is called taste? Therefore, you should know that neither flavors nor the tongue's tasting has a location, and so the two places of tasting and flavor are empty and false. Their origin is not in causes and conditions, nor do their natures arise spontaneously. Ananda, early every morning you rub your head with your hand. What do you think? When there is a sensation of the rubbing, where does the ability to make contact lie? Is the ability in the hands or is it in the head? If it were in the hands, then the head would have no knowledge of it, and how could that be what is called touch? If it were in the head, then the hands would be useless, and how could that be what is called touch? If each had it, then you, Ananda, would have two bodies. If there were only one touch in the head and the hand, then the hand and the head would be of one substance. If they were one substance, then no touch would be possible. If they were two substances, to which would the touch belong? The one which was capable of touch would not be the one that was touched. The one that was touched would not be the one that was capable of touch, nor should it be that the touch came into being between you and emptiness. Therefore, you should know that neither the sensation of touch nor the body has a location. And so the two places of the body and touch are empty and false. Their origin is not in causes and conditions, nor do their natures arise spontaneously. Ananda, your mind is always conditioned by three qualities, good, bad, and indeterminate, which produce patterns of dharmas. Are these dharmas produced by the mind, or do they have a special place apart from the mind?